Hello and welcome to this Beyond Shakespeare exploring session where we are looking at Tamburlaine the Great by Christopher Marlowe from the beginning, bit by bit, taking our time without feeling the clock weighing heavily over us. The play we're going to focus on was written around 87, something like that. Christopher Marlowe, young upcoming writer, has some work under his belt, but hasn't necessarily established himself as this amazing super deluxe playwright, supercharged and superpowered. So what we're going to try and do today is stagger through this play that, if his name wasn't made before, it certainly was afterwards, as though we have never seen it before. In some cases, some of us haven't seen it before, which is fine. And try and get a sense of it as its own entity. You may know of Tamburlaine the Great Part 1, which this is very similar to, except in our universe, Part 2 doesn't exist, so it's just called Tamburlaine the Great. And as I say, we're going to try and approach it like we are seeing it for the first time, like audiences might have seen it the first time. There is only one fly in the ointment of doing this, and that is, unfortunately, the script we have is most definitely not what they saw in the 1580s. Because unfortunately, at publication, the printer decided to make some alterations. Just reading here from Richard Jones, the printer. I have purposely omitted and left out some fond and frivolous gestures, digressing and, in my poor opinion, far unmeet for the matter, which I thought might seem more tedious unto the wise than anyway less to be regarded, though haply they have been of some vain conceited fondlings greatly gaped at, what times they were shown upon the stage in their graced deformities, nevertheless now to be mixtured in print, with such worthy matter, it would prove a great disgrace to so honourable and stately a history. So the printer had a very clear idea about the kind of play that this was supposed to be. So we have also said, in terms of tone, that we're perfectly happy to go with more comedy moments that may survive. There's certainly the potential for irony and dark humour, and not to be afraid to head for that. However, there is a trigger warning that is important to make clear, that this is a play with a lot of violence in it, and though obviously we can't depict it very realistically, it is there. There is also at times discussions of sexual violence, and generally a lot of quite dark stuff happens. So just for the unwary, that's what's coming up. Obviously, all you're getting is about 7 heads looking at you on a computer screen, so it should hopefully not be desperately traumatic. We had a mini discussion before we went up on pronunciation of names, but there are a lot of names where there is room for manoeuvre, and there may be some variations on a theme. I'm quite content with that, and you should be as well. We're not here to say that we know what's going on or precisely how it should be done. None of the people here are necessarily exactly the parts that we would cast in real life, and that's fine. However, let us introduce you to the readers today. Now, there's been some movement of forces today, so I will just ask people to introduce themselves via at least one of the carts I have named for them to read. So, starting off with the titular figure, who's playing Tamburlaine?
I am playing Tamburlaine. Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, director, and writer. I run a small audiobook company called Sounds Curious, and I'm very excited to be reading Tamburlaine.
Excellent. And who is reading variously some soldiers, some messengers, Menaphon, and the all together now, do we know how to pronounce Usumcasane? I don't even know if I said it how we suggested it should be said earlier. Who's reading those?
Well, the good news is that I won't be saying any of those names. So I'm happy. I'm David Ault. I am a voice actor and audiobook narrator based in the north of England. We've had a discussion before we went on about how Ripon has featured in not only my life, but also Tamburlaine the Great's life as well. So that's quite cool. But yes, you may know me from such podcasts as No Sleep and the Byron Chronicles. And yes, I am various people.
Excellent. And performing as Zenocrate and Mycetes, as possibly as well as a few other people, is...
Hello, I'm Pamela. I am an actor and all-round entertainer in my own mind. Originally from Dublin, but I'm on lockdown in London at the moment.
Excellent. And reading at the moment, Prologue, Cosroe, and probably various other people as we go along is Sascha Cooper. Oh, I said your name for you. Don't even need to introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, Robert, anyway. So my name is... Sascha Cooper, and indeed I will be playing the Prologue and Cosroe as well. I'm an actress, dancer and director, budding voiceover actor, and also a medium and hair and makeup artist and psychic reader based in Brighton in the UK. Looking forward to exploring Marlowe, because as much as I love his plays, this is the one play that I have never ever studied and I've always wanted to.
Excellent. And reading Theridamas, Spy, and probably some other people. Theridamas is quite difficult to double because crosses the camps too often. Is...
Hi, I'm Syra. I'm an actress and living just outside London. And this is my first experience of Marlowe's work, so I'm very excited.
Lovely. And last but certainly not least, who's reading various names, which actually occurs to me we didn't actually talk about how to pronounce. So Ortygius, Magnites, or something along those lines, and probably somebody else who I just told you but I immediately forgot. Meander, I think, wasn't it? You are.
Hi, my name's William Sutton. I'm an actor and I'm based here in Amsterdam.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right. Well, no play really should start without a prologue. So let us start with the prologue to this particular play.
From jigging veins of I'll start that again. From jigging veins of rhyming mother wits and such conceits as clownage keeps in pay, we'll lead you to the stately tent of wool, where you shall hear the Scythian Tamburlaine threatening the world with high astounding terms and scourging kingdoms with his conquering sword. View but his picture in this tragic glass, and then applaud his fortunes as you please.
Lovely, and we'll just briefly pause there. It's a short prologue, it's sweet, it just vaguely sets everything up. And such conceits as clownage keeps in pay. We'll see whether there's any particular clownage available. So the Act 1, Scene 1 is not in Tamburlaine's camp. We are introduced to a whole host of other people in power, discussing the general state of affairs. So we have Mycetes, Cosroe, his brother, and various other lords, etc. under that. We will start the scene, see how far we get, and hopefully we'll rattle through to the end and everyone knows who they are. Okie dokie. Go, Mycetes, please. Enter Mycetes, Cosroe, Meander, Theridamas, Ortygius, Ceneus, Menaphon, with others.
Brother Cosroe, I find myself aggrieved, yet insufficient to express the same, for it requires a great and thundering speech. Good brother, tell the cause unto my lords. I know you have a better wit than I.
Unhappy Persia, that in former age has been the seat of a mighty conquerors, that in their prowess and their policies have triumphed over Afrique, and the bounds of Europe where the sun dare scarce appear, for freezing meteors and congealed cold. now to be ruled and governed by a man at whose birthday Cynthia with Saturn joined, and Jove, the Sun and Mercury denied to shed their influence in his fickle brain. Now Turks and Tartars shake their swords at thee, meaning to mangle all thy provinces.
Brother, I see your meaning well enough, and through your planets I perceive you think I am not wise enough to be king. But I refer me to my noblemen that know my wit and can be witnesses. I might command you to be slain for this. Meander, might I not?
Not for so small a fault, my sovereign lord.
I mean it not, but yet I know I might. Yet live, yea, live. Mycetes wills it so. Meander, thou my faithful counsellor, declare the cause of my conceived grief, which is, God knows, about that Tamburlaine, that, like a fox in midst of harvest time, doth prey upon my flocks of passengers, and, as I hear, doth mean to pull my plumes. Therefore, 'tis good and meet for to be wise.
Oft have I heard your majesty complain of Tamburlaine, that sturdy Scythian thief that robs your merchants of Persepolis, trading by land into the Western Isles, and in your confines with his lawless train daily commits incivil outrages, hoping, misled by dreaming prophecies, to reign in Asia, and with barbarous arms to make himself the monarch of the East. But ere he march in Asia, or display his vagrant ensign in the Persian fields, your grace hath taken order by Theridamas, charged with 1,000 horse, to apprehend and bring him captive to your highness' throne.
Full true thou speakst, and like thyself, my lord, whom I may term a Damon for thy love. Therefore, 'tis best, if so it like you all, to send my 1,000 horse incontinent to apprehend that paltry Scythian. How like you this, my honourable lords? Is it not a kingly resolution?
It cannot choose, because it comes from you.
Then hear thy charge, valiant Theridamas, the chiefest captain of Mycetes' host, the hope of Persia, and the very legs whereon our state doth lean as on a staff that holds us up and foils our neighbours' foes. Thou shalt be leader of this 1,000 horse, whose foaming gall with rage and high disdain have sworn the death of wicked Tamburlaine. Go frowning forth, but come thou smiling home, as did Sir Paris with the Grecian dame. Return with speed. Time passeth swift away. Our life is frail, and we may die today.
Before the moon renew her borrowed light, doubt not, my lord and gracious sovereign, but Tamburlaine and that Tartarian rout shall either perish by our warlike hands or plead mercy at your highness's feet.
Go, stout Theridamas, thy words are swords, and with thy looks thou conquerest all thy foes. I long to see thee back returned from thence, that I may view these milk-white steeds of mine, all loaden with the heads of killed men, and from their knees even to their hoofs below, besmeared with blood that makes a dainty show.
Then now, my lord, I humbly take my leave.
Theridamas, farewell 10,000 times.
And exit Theridamas.
Ah, Menaphon, why stayest thou thus behind when other men press forward for renown? Go, Menaphon, go into Scythia and foot by foot follow Theridamas.
Nay, pray you, let him stay. A greater task fits Menaphon than warring with a thief. Create him pro-rex of all Africa, that he may win the Babylonians' hearts, which will revolt from Persian government, unless they have a wiser king than you.
Unless they have a wiser king than you. Those are his words, Meander. Set them down.
And add this to them, that all Asia lament to see the folly of their king.
Well, here I swear by this, my royal seat,
You may do well to kiss it then.
embossed with silk as best besteems my state, to be revenged for those contemptuous words. Oh, where is duty and allegiance now? Fled to the Caspian or the ocean main? What shall I call thee? Brother? No, a foe, monster of nature. Shame unto thy stock, that darest presume thy sovereign for to mock. Meander, come. I am abused, Meander.
And everyone exits except for Cosroe and Menaphon.
How now, my lord? What, mated and amazed to hear the king thus threaten like himself?
Ah, Menaphon, I pass not for his threats. The plot is laid by Persian noblemen and captains of the Median garrisons to crown me Emperor of Asia. But this it is that doth excruciate the very substance of my vexed soul, to see our neighbours that were wont to quake and tremble at the Persian monarch's name, now sit and laugh our regiment to scorn, and that which might resolve me into tears. Men from the father's equinoctial line have swarmed in troops into the eastern India, lading their ships with gold and precious stones, and made their spoils from all our provinces.
This should entreat your highness to rejoice, since fortune gives you opportunity to gain the title of a conqueror by curing of this maimed empery. Afric and Europe bordering on your land, and continent to your dominions, how easily may you, with a mighty host, pass into Grecia as did Cyrus once, and cause them to withdraw their forces home, lest you subdue the pride of Christendom.
Trumpets within.
But Menaphon, what means this trumpet sound?
Behold, my lord, Ortygius and the rest bringing the crown to make you emperor.
Re-enter Ortygius and Ceneus with others bearing a crown.
Magnificent and mighty Prince Cosroe, we, in the name of other Persian states and commons of this mighty monarchy, present thee with the imperial diadem.
The warlike soldiers and the gentlemen that heretofore have filled Persepolis with Afric captains taken in the field, whose ransom made them march in coats of gold, with costly jewels hanging at their ears, and shining stones upon their lofty crests, now living idle in the walled towns, wanting both pay and martial discipline, begin in troops to threaten civil war, and openly exclaim against their king. Therefore, to stay all sudden mutinies, we will invest your highness emperor, whereat the soldiers will conceive more joy than did the Macedonians at the spoil of great Darius and his wealthy host.
Well, since I see the state of Persia droop and languish in my brother's government, I willingly receive the imperial crown, and vow to wear it for my country's good, in spite of them shall malice my estate.
And in assurance of desired success, we here do crown thee monarch of the East, emperor of Asia and Persia, great lord of Media and Armenia, duke of Africa and Albania, Mesopotamia and of Parthia, East India and the late discovered isles, chief lord of all the wide vast Euxine Sea, and of the ever-raging Caspian Lake.
Long live
Cosroe, mighty
emperor.
And Jove may never let me longer live than I may seek to gratify your love, and cause the soldiers that thus honour me to triumph over many provinces, by whose desires of discipline in arms I doubt not shortly but to reign sole king, and with the army of Theridamas, whether we presently will fly, my lords, to rest secure against my brother's force.
We knew, my lord, before we brought the crown, intending your investiture so near the residence of your despised brother, the lords would not be too exasperate to injury or suppress your worthy title. Or, if they would, they are in readiness 10,000 horse to carry you from hence, in spite of all suspected enemies.
I know it well, my lord, and thank you all.
Sound up the trumpets then.
God
save the king.
king. Exeunt. Lovely. That's a nice solid start. So, welcome to West Wing Persia. Because if you didn't know the title of the play, you'd be thinking, well, there's a lot going on here. This must be going somewhere. This is all very exciting. How do you find the court? Let's talk about the king first, shall we? How did we feel about Mycetes?
Well, as I'm reading him, I'm really realizing he's a bit blustery and ineffectual. Yes, I don't think maybe he is the strongest leader that they've perhaps had.
Considering we've got a court that's very high on machismo here, and he's really into Theridamas going out and doing some stuff for him.
He's not going to do it.
He's not going to do it. He's really quite the way he describes what he wants Theridamas to do felt very. You were quite eager for that to happen.
It was a little bit of a lustful thrill, I feel.
Vicarious thrills going on here. Not got the great brotherly relationship though.
Not really, no.
How's Cosroe feeling? Here.
Cosroe is an interesting one because it's clear that he's the stronger of the two brothers, but I can't help but feel that he's just based on the language that he's using. He's very manipulative. I think there's going to be quite an interesting journey. He seems to have literally come to power very, very quickly in order to get things done. And there seems to be some kind of master plan in the way that he uses some of the language. For instance, when he's talking about Persia, and there's little digs that he gets at his brother for not being that proactive, and he does slander him somewhat when he leaves. So I can't help but wonder if there's some kind of political tactical angle for him going on here.
I think that's a very good shout. Of course, the state is in some confusion at the moment because there's this Tamburlaine chap who's causing all this trouble. Hasn't had much of a mention, but I'm sure Theridamas will sort him out. It'll be fine.
What I find interesting about Tamburlaine is that he is referred to with talk of astrology. So right up there at the top, it's at whose birthday Cynthia with Saturn joined, and Jove, the Sun, and Mercury denied to shed their influence in his fickle brain. So immediately they're making those links between the stars when it comes to Tamburlaine. But what I found was that everything else was quite solid, and it's all military kind of thing. I thought that was quite an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. We may feel the more comes out of that anon. Any other thoughts at this early stage?
Yes, I have one. Possibly it's just that my mind dwells in the gutter. Did I spot a kiss my arse joke?
Yes,
there?
I saw that as well. Yes.
He's a cheeky chap, isn't he, that Cosroe?
Yeah. That he is. He's definitely got the backbiting. But it's really interesting how his brother is sort of giving that whole thing at the beginning. He is prodding his brother. Oh, I should kill you for saying things like that. Live. Yeah, you can live. And there's a real relationship there. That's what's nice, is actually all these characters, they may be doing very high terms, but there is actually a real basis of meat underneath all this. You immediately get the sense of who these people are. Any additional thoughts before we crack on? Okay, let's move into the next scene where we have Tamburlaine, and he has a captive in tow. We've got Magnetes. Yes. So I think I've given most people. There is. Yeah, I think we're good to move forward.
There is a soldier at the end of this one who is doing that.
Probably going to have to be me, isn't it? Because you're already on, as it
I'm
were.
already on.
You're already on, and I may find that I'm reading something else. We'll see. Various supernumeraries, if we have to stop and start and point out that we're reading someone even though we're already on stage, there may be a bit of that coming up because this is a relatively busy scene. So, scene 2, enter Tamburlaine, leading Zenocrate, Techelles, Usumcasane, Aegidus, Magnetes, lords and soldiers loaden with treasure.
Come, lady, let not this appall your thoughts. The jewels and the treasure we have ta'en shall be reserved, and you in better state than if you were arrived in Syria, even in the circle of your father's arms, the mighty Soldan of Egyptia.
Ah, shepherd, pity my distressed plight, if, as thou seemst, thou art so mean a man, and seek not to enrich thy followers by lawless rapine from a silly maid, who, travelling with these Median lords to Memphis, from my uncle's country of Medea, where all my youth I have been governed, have passed the army of the mighty Turk, bearing his privy signet and his hand, to safe conduct us through Africa.
And since we have arrived in Scythia, besides rich presents from the puissant Cham, we have His Highness letters to command aid and assistance if we stand in need.
But now you see these letters and commands are countermanded by a greater man. And through my provinces you must expect letters of conduct from my mightiness, if you intend to keep your treasure safe. But since I love to live at liberty, as easily may you get the Soldan's crown as any prizes out of my precinct. For they are friends that help to wean my state, till men and kingdoms help to strengthen it, and must maintain my life exempt from servitude. But tell me, madam, is your grace betrothed?
I am, my lord, for so you do import.
I am a lord, for so my deeds shall prove. And yet a shepherd by my parentage, but lady, this fair face and heavenly hue must grace his bed that conquers Asia, and means to be a terror to the world, measuring the limits of his empery by east and west as Phoebus doth his course. Lie here, ye weeds, that I disdain to wear. This complete armour and this curtle axe are adjuncts more beseeming Tamburlaine. And
Pointing out, this is the first time in this scene that your name has been mentioned. So there might have been, until this point, some confusion in the audience's mind.
Oh, as to who I was.
Especially
yes.
considering what you're probably wearing at this point in costume terms, is you're not necessarily dressed like a soldier or a king, per se. I should have pointed that out properly before we started, but never mind. So, ladies and gentlemen of the audience at home, this is Tamburlaine speaking, who is chatting to Zenocrate there and her various camp followers, and of course various sergeants and lieutenants underneath Tamburlaine too. Continue beseeming Tamburlaine, please.
And madam, whatsoever you esteem of this success and loss unvalued, both may invest you Empress of the East, and these that seem but silly country swains may have the leading of so great an host as with their weight shall make the mountains quake, even as when windy exhalations fighting for passage tilt within the earth.
As princely lions, when they rouse themselves, stretching their paws and threatening herds of beasts, so in his armour looketh Tamburlaine. Methinks I see kings kneeling at his feet, and he with frowning brows and fiery looks spurning their crowns from off their captive heads.
and making thee and me, Techelles, kings, that even to death will follow Tamburlaine.
Nobly resolved, sweet friends and followers. These lords perhaps do scorn our estimates, and think we prattle with distempered spirits. But since they measure our deserts so mean, that in conceit bears empires on our spears, affecting thoughts co-equal with the clouds, they shall be kept our falsehood followers, till with their eyes they view us emperors.
The gods, defenders of the innocent, will never prosper your intended drifts that thus oppress poor, friendless passengers. Therefore, at least admit us liberty, even as thou hopest to be eternized by living Asia's mighty emperor.
And there we hit that brief pause where we have a gap in my list. So I'm going to ask actually to elide the next two speeches. So could Magnetes read the two speechettes together? So there are effectively two camp followers with Queen Zenocrate at this point. The two speeches effectively could be run as one. So the last two lines technically is Magnetes from earlier, but backing up or undermining Zenocrate are her assistants, as it were. I think that makes sense. So Zenocrate, could you just give us the last three lines of your speech before, please?
Oh, sorry. Therefore, at least admit us liberty, even as thou hopest to be eternized by living Asia's mighty emperor.
I hope our lady's treasure and our own may serve for ransom to our liberties. Return our mules and empty camels back, that we may travel into Syria, where her betrothed lord, Damas, expects the arrival of her highness' person, and wheresoever we repose ourselves, we will report but well of Tamburlaine.
Disdains Zenocrate to live with me? Or you, my lords, to be my followers? Think you I weigh this treasure more than you? Not all the gold in India's wealthy arms shall buy the meanest soldier in my train. Zenocrate, lovelier than the love of Job, brighter than is the silver Rhodope, fairer than the whitest snow on Scythian hills, thy person is more worth to Tamburlaine than the possession of the Persian crown, which gracious stars have promised at my birth. 100 Tartars shall attend on thee, mounted on steeds swifter than Pegasus. Thy garments shall be made of Median silk, enchased with precious jewels of mine own, more rich and valorous than Zenocrate's. With milk-white hearts, upon an ivory sled, thou shalt be drawn amidst the frozen pools, and scale the icy mountains' lofty tops, which, with thy beauty, will be soon resolved. My martial prizes, with 500 men, one on the 50-headed Volga's waves, shall we all offer to Zenocrate, and then myself to fair Zenocrate.
What? Now? In love?
Techelles, women must be flattered. But this is she with whom I am in love.
At which point we have the entrance of a soldier. And because Zenocrate will not say very much else in the scene, I'll ask Pamela to read the entering soldier now.
News! News!
How now? What's the matter?
1,000 Persian horsemen are at hand, sent from the king to overcome us all.
How now, my lords of Egypt and Zenocrate? Now must your jewels be restored again, and I, that triumphed so, be overcome? How say you, lordlings? Is this not your hope?
We hope yourself will willingly restore them.
Such hope, such fortune have the 1,000 horse. Soft ye, my lords, and sweet Zenocrate, you must be forced from me ere you go. 1,000 horsemen, we 500 foot. An odds too great for us to stand against. But are they rich? And is their armour good?
Their plumed helms are wrought with beaten gold. Their swords enamelled, and about their necks hang massy chains of gold down to the waist, in every part exceeding brave and rich.
And shall we fight courageously with them? Or look you, I should play the orator?
No, cowards and faint-hearted runaways look for orations when the foe is near. Our sword shall play the orators for us.
Come, let us meet them at the mountain top, and with a sudden and a hot alarum, drive all their horses headlong down the hill.
Come, let us march.
Stay, Techelles. Ask a parley first.
And opposing soldiers enter.
Open the mails, yet guard the treasure sure. Lay out our golden wedges to the view, that their reflections may amaze the Persians. And look we friendly on them when they come, but if they offer word or violence, we'll fight. 500 men-at-arms to 1 before we part with our possession. And against the general we will lift our swords, and either lance his greedy, thirsting throat, or take him prisoner, and his chains shall serve for manacles till he be ransomed home.
I hear them come. Shall we encounter them?
Keep all your standings, and stir, not stir a foot. Myself will bide the danger of the brunt.
And we will pause there before the entrance of Theridamas, which is essentially a second unit in this scene. Lots and lots of things going on there. Any thoughts in the room before I throw in some of my own?
Tamburlaine really loves Zenocrate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me, there's going to be more of that to come.
He seems a little bit infatuated with her.
It's happened
Yeah.
quite quickly as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Things do seem to happen very quickly with a lot of people's moods and actions here. They're not hanging around. The plot won't let them, if
They
nothing
might
else.
die.
Hmm?
They might die, so, you know, we
Yep.
have to do things quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, Tamburlaine, as opposed to what we've previously seen, he seems very impetuous as a person, very spontaneous, but yet he's got this incredible insight into how things need to be. So there's a very big sense of practicality behind him, and probably one to really watch out for as the play goes on, because even back then, warfare was extremely unpredictable and not compared to the warfare that we have now, so to speak. So a lot of it is driven by emotions and well-being, and Tamburlaine seems to be one of these people that was very forward-thinking of his time. He seems to have a mixture of the two going on there, which can make him a danger to some, probably.
Oh, I think he's definitely dangerous. I mean, he seems to command extreme loyalty from everyone. He's. I mean, the thing is, I think we were probably a bit wrong. His various lieutenants in our accent choices, in the sense that they all seem to be from a lower station than probably the court we saw in the first scene. Though, of course, whether accent would have made that much of a difference, or the differences in accents then as opposed to now, but in terms of there seems to be a distinct class difference. But that said, Tamburlaine is a class act in his own way, because he has such a way of speaking.
Yeah, and that's what makes him very forward-thinking, I think, because as opposed to you're quite right in the sense there is a lot of the class difference in this play, but what's interesting is that that's what actually makes him more dangerous, because if he's working with a lower class, there's a more raw, crass energy behind that type of soldier as there would be as opposed to, say, a court soldier. who does things in a set regimental way. But you've got an unpredictability going on here with the lower classes. You don't know what the hell they're going to do. So that's what makes it more exciting, I think, when you're watching Tamburlaine actually make his stance, I think.
And of course, you remember we're starting with essentially a hijacked baggage train here. We've got various very vulnerable people on stage, surrounded by soldiers. And I passed Zenocrate's lines or Pamela's over to be a soldier. But I think we should remember for the rest of this scene, Zenocrate is still on stage because she will say the final line. And all of these people here, Zenocrate's support system, which is presented as quite large. I gave William those two conflated speeches effectively, and in a sense they're not structurally different. It works perfectly well as one speaker, and I suspect it's been doubled that way many a time before. But the point is visually that she has a train, she has money, she expects just to be ransomed as you would be, and your character there, or characters, are just sort of trying to oil the wheels there, just going, right, can we get on with the ransoming thing? Because that's what happens. And no, suddenly this ruffian is going to Zenocrate, I love you, you are going to come into my bed. And that there, however beautiful the language, there is a violence to that as well.
Yeah.
And it is easy to be bewitched by what is happening in language terms. And forgetting, obviously, that we have a physical spectacle that we're trying to present as well.
But the way you use the word bewitched there is interesting, because we are bewitched by him as well, aren't we? He's mesmerizing, and the way he can turn from, like, on the one moment, like trying to lure and seduce Zenocrate, to then, talking with his men and rousing them to battle. He's just...
It's unpredictable, isn't it?
It's unpredictable, but the result, the outcome is unpredictable, but it all comes from the same place, I think. It just comes from this incredible self-belief, this kind of amazing sense of entitlement that makes him so sure of what he's doing, whether he's making love to a woman or whether he's ordering his troops into battle. It makes him so sure of what he's doing that everyone around him is just sort of mesmerized by it, really. I don't know, that's kind of how I was finding it anyway, reading him. He was just,
almost in that idea. Now this is going maybe a bit dark, but like, the way Hitler was a really great orator, and so
that's true.
About what he was saying, and so he does bewitch people and draw them in and get them to do what he wants.
Yeah, I was thinking of Hitler too, actually, because
strangely I was, it's weird.
Well, let's put it this way: how many figures in history called the Great were nice?
True.
True.
There is a string of corpses behind all of them, and what happens with Tamburlaine, it's going to get worse, I think is fair to say, without giving too much away. Too many spoilers there. But we have an opposing army. Now, when I said opposing soldiers enter, of course, that's sort of a mixture. That could have been his own soldiers entering to display their booty and wealth, or just the four guards to the entrance of Theridamas. Now, I interpolated and it occurred to me that I shouldn't have done that, so I should have just kept the stage direction as writ. But we now have the second unit of this scene, the entrance of Theridamas with his army to take down this Scythian scourge. And let's see how this exchange goes. So enter Theridamas with others.
Where is this Scythian Tamburlaine?
Whom seekest thou, Persian? I am Tamburlaine.
Tamburlaine, a Scythian shepherd so embellished with nature's pride and richest furniture. His looks do menace heaven and dare the gods. His fiery eyes are fixed upon the earth, as if he now devised some stratagem, or meant to pierce Avernus' darksome vaults, to pull the triple-headed dog from hell.
Noble and mild this Persian seems to be, if outward habit judge the inward man.
His deep affections make him passionate.
With what a majesty he rears his looks. In thee, thou valiant man of Persia, I see the folly of thy emperor. Art thou but captain of 1,000 horse, that by characters graven in thy brows, and by thy martial face and stout aspect, deservest to have the leading of an host? Forsake thy king, and do but join with me, and we will triumph over all the world. I hold the fates bound fast in iron chains, and with my hand turn fortune's wheel about. And sooner shall the sun fall from his spear than Tamburlaine be slain or overcome. Draw forth thy sword, thou mighty man-at-arms, intending but to raise my charmed skin, and Jove himself will stretch his hand from heaven to ward the blow, and shield me safe from harm. See how he rains down heaps of gold in showers, as if he meant to give my soldiers pay. And as a sure and grounded argument that I shall be the monarch of the East, he sends this sultan's daughter, rich and brave, to be my queen and portly empress. If thou wilt stay with me, renowned man, and lead thy 1,000 horse with my conduct, besides thy share of this Egyptian prize, those 1,000 horse shall sweat with martial spoil, of conquered kingdoms and of cities sacked. Both will we walk upon the lofty cliffs, and Christian merchants that with Russian stems plough up the huge furrows in the Caspian Sea shall vail to us as lords of all the lake. Both will we reign as consuls of the earth, and mighty kings shall be our senators. Jove sometime masked in a shepherd's weed, and by those steps that he hath scaled the heavens, may we become immortal like the gods. Join with me now in this my mean estate. I call it mean because, being yet obscure, the nations far removed admire me not. And when my name and honour shall be spread as far as Boreas clasps his brazen wings, or fair Boötes sends his cheerful light, then shalt thou be competitor with me, and sit with Tamburlaine in all his majesty.
Not Hermes, prolocutor to the gods, could use persuasions more pathetical.
Nor are Apollo's oracles more true than thou shalt find my vaunts substantial.
We are his friends, and if the Persian king should offer present dukedoms to our state, we think it loss to make exchange for that we are assured of by our friend's success.
And kingdoms at the least we all expect, besides the honour in assured conquests, where kings shall crouch unto our conquering swords, and hosts of soldiers stand amazed at us, when with their fearful tongues they shall confess, these are the men that all the world admires.
Aye.
What strong enchantments tice my yielding soul to these resolved noble Scythians? But shall I prove a traitor to my king?
No, but the trusty friend of Tamburlaine.
Won with thy words and conquered with thy looks, I yield myself, my men and horse to thee, to be partaker of thy good or ill, as long as life maintains Theridamas.
Theridamas, my friend. Take here my hand, which is as much as if I swore by heaven and called the gods to witness of my vow. Thus shall my heart be still combined with thee, until our bodies turn to elements, and both our souls aspire celestial thrones. Techelles and Cosroe, welcome him.
Welcome, renowned Persian, to us all.
Long may Theridamas remain with us.
These are my friends, in whom I more rejoice than doth the king of Persia in his crown. And by the love of Pylades and Orestes, whose statues we adore in Scythia, thyself and them shall never part from me before I crown you kings in Asia. Make much of them, gentle Theridamas, and they will never leave thee till the death.
Nor thee nor them, thrice noble Tamburlaine, shall want my heart to be with gladness pierced, to do you honour and security.
1,000 thanks, worthy Theridamas. And now, fair madam, and my noble lords, if you will willingly remain with me, you shall have honours as your merits be, or else ye shall be forced with slavery.
We yield unto thee, happy Tamburlaine.
For you then, madam, I am out of doubt.
I must be pleased perforce. Wretched Zenocrate.
And thus ends Act 1. So much going on there. Suddenly we have this Tamburlaine, and now he's got 3 henchmen rather than just 2. And Theridamas has become a turncoat. Becoming a turncoat isn't historically a very successful action, but you were very persuasive. I think we can, I don't feel that it was forced. But now you're all brothers in arms. It's all very much, yeah, mate, yeah, yeah, stuff going on there. It's all very matey, very chappy. Thoughts from the room before we move on to Act 2?
Just playing Zenocrate, and the line about sharing in, I'm just trying to find it, but sharing in this prize from Egypt, and I was just a bit like, oh God, what's going to happen to her? Maybe that's not what's meant by that. Maybe it's the jewels, maybe it's the slaves, but there was actual fear for a second there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you are presented there as the kind of spoil of war that followers could enjoy. And let's not assume that there aren't also an awful lot of other people behind you who are not going to be as lucky as you. From named characters to just the unknown individuals, because let's not assume that the armies are nice. Armies are not nice.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's very much a boys' club play. This very much so, which is why it's good to not just have a blokey reading room for this. Any other thoughts?
Well, for me, it's the. First of all, he's outnumbered with this. When Theridamas comes in, he outnumbers. Is it 2-1 or 10-1? Heaven knows.
2-1.
2-1, right? So he's outnumbered, and he knows. And suddenly, this blank verse changes his mind, and it's really quite. I think Theridamas is also looking for somebody who's got these qualities, these war. He offers him all the things that Theridamas wants. They're all boy things, but he's appealing to the soldier in him. He's saying, you want war, you want conquest, come with me. This is what's going to happen. So that's the thing that's it's kind of exciting to see. But why it happens, that's another question.
Well, I think that's why the first scene is actually so important here, because we've seen the court Theridamas comes from, which is venal. It's led by an older man who's not going out to war, who's sending him to war. There's factioning, there's backbiting. I think Tamburlaine presents him with certainty. Tamburlaine is very clear about his rules. He has rules for things, and I think Theridamas responds well to that. I was just going to ask Theridamas yourself. How are you finding?
Well, yes. I was just thinking. Initially, I thought that he was very fickle and easily swayed, and then it sort of occurred to me, as you just said, because he's come from such an unstable background. He's probably thinking about his long-term ambition and how he can kind of create some kind of stability for himself going forward. whereas that, you know, there's possibly going to be so much chaos and disruption where he comes from that there'll be no guarantee of him sort of securing anything for his future. Whereas possibly with Tamburlaine, he you know, stands a chance of having some kind of secure future.
True.
And is there also not the seduction of the fact that Tamburlaine, for all his bombast and the way he speaks, he's speaking to him in a very direct and passionate way. I mean, Theridamas, assuming that he's the consummate soldier, the sort of equivalent of the general of the army, if he's surrounded by all these conniving, scheming politicians and what he considers to be weak men at court, then he's suddenly presented with this man who is mesmerizing, but he's just so pure in his passion, and he's a real soldier's man, as Rob said, there's like all that testosterone flying around, but he's like, come on. He kind of cuts through all the politicking, doesn't he? He's the contrast to the very subtle, lying, backbiting politicians. He is the very pure, comes across as being very true because he's so passionate and he has that self-belief. And I would imagine that a soldier would really respond to that, because it has an honesty to it that all the scheming at court doesn't have. It's like he knows where he is with him. That makes sense.
And talking of the scheming court, we go into Act 2, and we're going to have a few contrasting factions coming up in the following scenes. So, coming up, we have Cosroe, the younger brother of the King of Persia, with Menaphon, read by David again, and a couple of other minor laudettes, Ortygius and Ceneus, or Ceneus. So we have more politics in Act 2, Scene 1. And Act 2 is there are more scenes in Act 2 than in Act 1. Act 1 set everything up for this particular plot strand. Let's see how this one plays out. Enter Cosroe, Menaphon, Ortygius, and Ceneus with soldiers.
Thus far are we towards Theridamas and valiant Tamburlaine, the man of fame, the man that in the forehead of his fortune bears figures of renown and miracle. But tell me, that has seen him, Menaphon, what stature wields he, and what personage?
Of stature tall and straightly fashioned, like his desire, lift upwards and divine, so large of limbs, his joints so strongly knit, such breadth of shoulders as might mainly bear old Atlas' burden. Twixt his manly pitch a pearl worth more than all the world is placed, wherein by curious sovereignty of art are fixed his piercing instruments of sight, whose fiery circles bear encompassed a heaven of heavenly bodies in their spheres, that guides his steps and actions to the throne where honour sits invested royally. Pale of complexion, wrought in him with passion, thirsting with sovereignty and love of arms, his lofty brows in folds do figure death, and in their smoothness amity and life. About them hangs a knot of amber hair, rapid in curls as fierce Achilles was, on which the breath of heaven delights to play, making it dance with wanton majesty. His arms and fingers long and sinewy, betokening valour and excess of strength, in every part proportioned like the man, should make the world subdued to Tamburlaine.
Well hast thou portrayed in thy terms of life the face and personage of a wondrous man. Nature doth strive with fortune and his stars to make him famous in accomplished worth. And well his merit shew him to be made his fortune's master and the king of men, that could persuade at such a sudden pinch with reasons of his valour and his life, 1,000 sworn and overmatching foes. Then, when our powers in point of swords are joined, and closed in compass of the killing bullet, though straight the passage and the port be made that leads to palace of my brothers, proud is his fortune if we pierce it not. And when the princely Persian diadem shall overweigh his weary, witless head, and fall like mellowed fruit with shakes of death, in fair Persia, noble Tamburlaine shall be my regent, and remain as king.
In happy hour we have set the crown upon your kingly head, that seeks our honour in joining with the man ordained by heaven to further every action to the best.
He that with shepherds and a little spoil durst in disdain of wrong and tyranny defend his freedom gainst a monarchy, what will he do supported by a king, leading a troop of gentlemen and lords, and stuffed with treasure for his highest thoughts?
And such shall wait on worthy Tamburlaine. Our army will be 40,000 strong, when Tamburlaine and brave Theridamas have met us by the river Arius, and all conjoined to meet the witless king, that now is marching near to Parthia, and with unwilling soldiers faintly armed, to seek revenge on me and Tamburlaine, to whom, sweet Menaphon, direct me straight.
I will, my lord.
Excellent. I don't want to pause too long here. I'll just briefly go into a couple of things. Everybody's in love with Tamburlaine. Look, you send one person out to talk, describe him. My God, there's some gushing going on there. He's got a poster of Tamburlaine on his wall.
He does, you know.
Yeah. I think the important plot point here is, of course, that Cosroe is teaming up with Tamburlaine. So Tamburlaine is not above getting involved in politics. He's using his enemy's enemy as his friend, and we're seeing this all very much from their point of view. I think I'd like to discuss this a little further after the next scene, because we then switch to the other brother. Mycetes, Meander, and other lords and soldiers and a spy. So it's all kicking off in the next scene.
Come, my Meander, let us to this gear. I tell you true, my heart is swoln with wrath on this same thievish villain Tamburlaine, and of that false Cosroe, my traitorous brother. Would it not grieve a king to be so abused, and have 1,000 horsemen taken away? And, which is worse, to have his diadem sought for by such scald knaves as love him not? I think it would. Well, then, by heavens I swear, Aurora shall not peep out of her doors, but I will have Cosroe by the head, and kill proud Tamburlaine with point of sword. Tell you the rest, Meander. I have said.
Then, having passed Armenian deserts now, and pitched our tents under the Georgian hills, whose tops are covered with Tartarian thieves, that lie in ambush, waiting for prey, what should we do but bid them battle straight, and rid the world of those detested troops? Lest, if we let them linger here a while, they gather strength by power of fresh supplies. This country swarms with vile, outrageous men that live by rapine and by lawless spoil, fit soldiers for the wicked Tamburlaine. And he that could with gifts and promises inveigle him that led 1,000 horse, and make him false his faith unto his king, will quickly win such as be like himself. Therefore cheer up your minds, prepare to fight. He that can take or slaughter Tamburlaine shall rule the province of Albania. Who brings that traitor's head, Theridamas, shall have a government in Media, beside the spoil of him and all his train. But if Cosroe as our spies say, and as we know, remains with Tamburlaine. His Highness' pleasure is that he should live and be reclaimed with princely lenity.
And here enters a spy.
100 horsemen of my company, scouted abroad upon these champion plains, have viewed the army of the Scythians, which make report it far exceeds the king's.
Suppose they be in their number infinite, yet being void of martial discipline, all running headlong, greedy after spoils, and more regarding gain than victory, like to the cruel brothers of the earth, sprung of the teeth of dragons venomous. Their careless swords shall lance their fellows' throats and make us triumph in their overthrow.
Was there such brethren, Meander say, that sprung of teeth of dragons venomous?
So poets say, my lord.
And 'tis a pretty toy to be a poet. Well, well, Meander, thou art deeply read, and having thee, I have a duel sure. Go on, my lord, and give your charge, I say. Thy wit will make us conquerors today.
Then, noble soldiers, to entrap these thieves that live confounded in disordered troops, if wealth or riches may prevail with them, we have our camels laden all with gold, which you that be but common soldiers shall fling in every corner of the field. And while the base-born Tartars take it up, you, fighting more for honor than for gold, shall massacre those greedy-minded slaves. And when their scattered army is subdued, and you march on their slaughtered carcasses, share equally the gold that bought their lives, and live like gentlemen in Persia. Strike up the drum, and march courageously. Fortune herself doth sit upon our crests.
He tells you true, my masters, so he does. Drums, why sound ye not when Meander speaks?
And exit with drums. This isn't really making any drumming noises, but I thought I'd have a go anyway. You know, it's interesting. You've got a character called Meander, and in the previous scene, Menaphon. They both begin with M, but their views on Tamburlaine are extremely different. You know, we had Poster Boy pin-up last scene. Here, he is Satan. And that's a really nice contrast between these two scenes. They feel nicely bookended of their two angles. Thoughts on that before we move into the joining of forces next scene?
It's obvious that Meander hasn't seen Tamburlaine's manly pitch.
No.
Again, I feel a bit like Mycetes is kind of getting off on the idea of war rather than the actuality of war.
Yes, it very much sounds like someone who is getting desperate, whose followers have deserted. And everything is just leaking away. And it's saying, come on, if you stand with me, I'll give you all of this.
And you'll live like a king, kind of.
Well, it's down to his second in command again to do the G'ing up, and it's like he's got these hired friends who have to tell him that everything's going to be great and we'll be fine. Because actually, Mycetes doesn't say very much at all as a part. You know, you actually pound for pound, he doesn't actually say that much. A lot of people say stuff at him, or he permits other people to do the exposition for him because he doesn't want to do it, which I heartily commend.
I also feel then that's a reflection on his character, isn't it? That he will always have somebody else to do it for him. You know, it's a little bit Emperor's New Clothes. You know, they tell him what he wants to hear. And,
I mean, the play isn't for a moment suggesting that he is a ruler who we should be rooting for. Really, I mean, we may think that the others are a bit bastardy, but they're at least competent. You get a sense of extreme competence with both Cosroe and Tamburlaine. Actually, the younger brother seems very organised.
Straight on it, to the point, knows what he wants, straight for it. Again, it's following the political angle, but at the same time, you can tell he's very much the impetuous one. I mean, you can clearly tell the difference in age in a way with some of the language that Cosroe uses, especially when he when he hears the description of Tamburlaine. You know, he's immediately, it's like a you know, like one of those mega fans that you see at these concerts say, "Oh, I'm your biggest fan." It's that kind of mindset, isn't it? But I'm sure in the next scene that fandom will be squashed as the two leaders start to manipulate and plan.
Yes, and that is a good segue into scene 3. So Cosroe, Tamburlaine, Theridamas, Techelles, the one David's playing, Ortygius, and others all
It's okay,
enter.
he doesn't speak in this one, so it's
Never
fine.
anybody's playing now. It's confusing.
Well, I think there is an element that we'll come to if we are even shorter on numbers, is that all of Tamburlaine's threesome behind him are all interchangeable at certain points. They do have characters, but actually you can effectively have one of them speaking for all the other two at times. So, well, I'm not worrying too much about that. Yes, you're down to be messenger in this, aren't you? You're exciting. So Tamburlaine's back at the back on the Oki, and Cosroe starts everything off, and Theridamas there in support with Techelles.
Now, worthy Tamburlaine, have I reposed in thy approved fortunes all my hope? What thinkest thou, man, shall come of our attempts? For even as from assured oracle, I take thy doom for satisfaction.
And so mistake you not a whit, my lord. For fates and oracles of heaven have sworn to royalize the deeds of Tamburlaine and make them blessed that share in his attempts. I doubt you not, but if you favour me, and let my fortunes and my valour sway to some direction in your martial deeds, the world will strive with hosts of men-at-arms to swarm unto the ensign I support. The host of Xerxes, by which fame is said to drink the mighty Parthian Araris, was but a handful to that we will have. Our quivering lances, shaking the air, and bullets, like Jove's dreadful thunderbolts, enrolled in flames and fiery smouldering mists, shall threat the gods more than Cyclopean wars, and with our sun-bright armour, as we march, we'll chase the stars from heaven and dim their eyes that stand and muse at our admired arms.
You see, Lord, what working words he hath? But when you see his actions top his speech, your speech will stay or extol his worth, as I shall be commended and excused for turning my poor charge to his direction. And these his two renowned friends, my lord, would make one thirst and strive to be retained in such a great degree of amity.
With duty and with amity we yield our utmost service to the fair Cosroe,
Which I esteem as portion of my crown, Usumcasane and Techelles both, when she that rules in Rama's golden gates and makes a passage for all prosperous arms shall make me solely Emperor of Asia. Then shall your meeds and valours be advanced to rooms of honour and nobility.
Then haste, Cosroe, to be king alone, that I with these my friends and all my men may triumph in our long-expected fate. The king, your brother, is now hard at hand. Meet with the fool, and rid your royal shoulders of such a burden as outweighs the sands and all the craggy rocks of Caspia.
My lord, we have discovered the enemy, ready to charge you with a mighty army.
Come, Tamburlaine, now whet thy winged sword, and lift thy lofty arm into the clouds, that it may reach the king of Persia's crown, and set it safe on my victorious head.
See where it is, the keenest curtle axe that e'er made passage through the Persian arms. These are the wings shall make it fly as swift as doth the lightning or the breath of heaven, and kill as sure as it swiftly flies.
Thy words assure me of kind success. Go, valiant soldier, go before, and charge the fainting army of that foolish king.
Usumcasane and Techelles, come. We are in now to scare the enemy, and more than needs to make an emperor.
And they exit to battle stuff. Okay. What I love about this is the option here for there is an option for comedy here with Cosroe, which I think he asks a simple question, and a page later, people stop talking at him. Basically, all this scene is we're going to go and have a fight. How do you think it's going to go? There's black and great aria, and everyone says all this love towards Tamburlaine, and Cosroe seems at the end, really make it clear, we're putting the crown on my head.
Yeah, very true.
Just make it clear where we're going with this, people.
Yeah, my head, thank you.
Yeah. And even though all of it's very polite and very, there needs, I think, to be that dynamic underneath the scene as well. I mean, that's such a fun little scene in a sense. Even though it just looks like oration, there is something else going on as well. That said, I might be tempted to trim occasionally some of Tamburlaine's excesses. Possibly
he does
one or
go
two.
on a bit.
He does.
He's very keen to get his point across.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts before we move into? There's a battle happening. I feel the action should move. William,
let's go.
No, William. So
no, this just the second time that Tamburlaine has said it's the fates and the oracles of heaven. That's the second time that he said that. Because I mean, literally, where does he come from? He comes from nowhere. Suddenly, like you say, he's got this train at the beginning holding them captive, and that's the start. But I mean, really, what's the start? Where does he come from? And that's this. Well, I've been promised by the stars and the oracles. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
And this is the beginning of that journey from just being essentially a raider to being an actual army and a host, and in the big leagues, he's stepping up here,
right?
And we know, that's where his confidence comes from. He knows that's his destiny. Oh, that's a really good point. Really like that. Okay, battle occurring. Battle. And now we have effectively a little two-hander with Mycetes with his crown in his hand. Sorry.
Accursed be he that first invented war. They knew not, simple men, how those were hit by pelting cannon shot stand staggering like a quivering aspen leaf, fearing the force of Borearis' boisterous blasts. In what a lamentable case were I, if nature had not given me wisdom's lore. For kings are clouts that every man shoots at, our crown the pin that thousands seek to cleave. Therefore, in policy, I think it good to hide it close. A goodly stratagem, and far from any man that is a fool. So shall I not be known, or if I be, they cannot take away my crown from me. Here will I hide it in this simple hole.
Enter Tamburlaine.
What, fearful coward, struggling from the camp when kings themselves are present in the field?
Thou liest.
Base villain, darest thou give me the lie?
Away! I am the king. Go, touch me not. Thou break'st the laws of arms, unless thou kneel and cry me, mercy, noble king.
Are you the witty king of Persia?
Aye, marry am I. Have you any suit to me?
I would entreat you to speak but 3 wise words.
So I can, when I see my time.
Is this your crown?
Aye. Didst thou ever see a fairer?
You will not sell it, will you?
Such another word, and I will have thee executed. Come, give it to me.
No, I took it prisoner.
You lie. I gave it you.
Then 'tis mine.
No, I mean I let you keep it.
Well, I mean you shall have it again. Here, take it for a while. I lend it thee, till I may see thee hemmed with armed men. Then shalt thou see me pull it from thy head. Thou art no match for mighty Tamburlaine.
And Tamburlaine exits.
Oh gods, is this Tamburlaine the thief? I marvel much he stole it not away.
Trumpets within sound to the battle. He runs out. And because I feel that these scenes sort of run into each other because of the battliness, we will go straight into Enter Cosroe, Tamburlaine, Menaphon, Meander, Ortygius, Theridamas, Techelles, Usumcasane, with others. We may find the doubling falls apart here at this point. We'll see how it goes. Tamburlaine, can be said, is doing quite well.
Hold thee, Cosroe. Wear 2 imperial crowns. Think thee invested now as royally, even by the mighty hand of Tamburlaine, as if as many kings could encompass thee with greatest pomp, had crowned thee emperor.
So do I, thrice renowned man at arms, and none shall keep the crown but Tamburlaine. Thee I do make regent of Persia, and general lieutenant of my armies. Meander, you that were our brother's guide, and chiefest counsellor in all his acts, since he is yielded to the stroke of war, on your submission we with thanks excuse, and give you equal place in our affairs.
Most happy Emperor, in humblest terms I vow my service to your majesty with utmost virtue of my faith and duty.
Thanks, good Meander. Then Cosroe reign, and govern Persia in her former pomp. Now, send embassage to thy neighbour kings, and let them know the Persian king is changed. Excuse me. But one that knew not what a king should do, to one that can command what longs thereto. And now we will to fair Persepolis with 20,000 expert soldiers. The lords and captains of my brother's camp with little slaughter take Meander's course, and gladly yield them to my gracious rule. Ortygius and Menaphon, my trusty friends, now will I gratify your former good, and grace your calling with a greater sway.
And I'll just pause there because obviously we've got a bit of in-scene doubling there. Give Sascha a chance to give your cough. I do like the fact that Meander is doing the kowtowing thing very, very heavily here, having damned everybody in the previous scenes, and is very much. Oh no, I'm your humble servant. Yes, absolutely. Yes, please do.
Oh, yes.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, so swapping now to Ortygius, William.
And as we ever aimed at your behoof, and sought your state all honour it deserved, so will we with our powers and our lives endeavour to preserve and prosper it.
I will not thank thee, sweet Ortygius. Better reply shall prove my purposes. And now, Lord Tamburlaine, my brother's camp I leave to thee, and to Theridamas to follow me to fair Persepolis. Then we will march to all those Indian mines my witless brother to the Christians lost, and ransom them with fame and usury. And till thou overtake me, Tamburlaine, staying to order all the scattered troops. Farewell, Lord Regent and his happy friends. I long to sit upon my brother's throne.
Your Majesty shall shortly have your wish and ride in triumph through Persepolis.
And exeunt all except Tamburlaine, Theridamas, Techelles, etc. And again, swapping back to Meander there. So we've got Cosroe seems to think himself really secure. He's off to get himself enthroned.
Right.
I think that's obviously where the play's going. I think that seems a perfectly reasonable action.
Definitely.
Not showing an awful lot of common sense in terms of securing his power base here, is he?
Not really. He's kind of laying himself wide open here,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem, and again, I think this is where the impetuousness really does come into play. Although the two men do work well together, this is still ultimately a political thing on Tamburlaine's part. He's clearly seen the weakness of Cosroe, and I think later down the line, something's going to happen in which all the tables are turned, I think, just because because the company are going to separate. Who knows what's going to happen when you get separated? Surely the logical thing would be to stick together, but no, not in this instance.
No, and it's this thing that that Tamburlaine is also a political animal as well. He's not just a soldier. He is cunning. He has a way with words. He is not just some shepherd, which is an interesting historical issue. But we won't go into that. We'll stick within the world and play. So the scene continues, unless there's anyone desperate to speak now, because we're only halfway through this scenette. Cosroe exits, and it's Tamburlaine and his mates all together.
And ride in triumph through Persepolis. Is it not brave to be a king, Techelles, Usumcasane, and Theridamas? Is it not passing brave to be a king and ride in triumph through Persepolis?
Oh, my lord, 'tis sweet and full of pomp.
To be a king is half to be a god.
A god is not so glorious as a king. I think the pleasure they enjoy in heaven cannot compare with kingly joys in earth. To wear a crown enchased with pearl and gold, whose virtues carry life and death, to ask and have, command and be obeyed, when looks breed love and looks to gain the prize, such power attractive shines in princes' eyes.
Why say, Theridamas, wilt thou be a king?
Nay, though I praise it, I can live without it.
What say my other friends? Will you be kings?
Aye, if I could, with all my heart, my lord.
Why, that's well said, Techelles. So would I. And so would you, my masters, would you not?
What then, my lord?
Why then, Casane, shall we wish for aught the world affords in greatest novelty, and rest attemptless, faint and destitute? Methinks we should not. I am strongly moved that if I should desire the Persian crown, I could attain it with a wondrous ease. And would not all our soldiers soon consent, if we should aim at such a dignity?
I know they would with our persuasions.
Why then, Theridamas, I'll first essay to get the Persian kingdom to myself. Then thou for Parthia, they for Scythia and Medea. And, if I prosper, all shall be as sure as if the Turk, the Pope, Afric and Greece came creeping to us with their crowns apiece.
Then shall we send to this triumphing king and bid him battle for his novel crown?
Nay, quickly then, before his room be hot.
'Twill prove a pretty jest in faith, my friends.
A jest to charge on 20,000 men. I judge the purchase more important far.
Judge by thyself, Theridamas, not me. For presently Techelles here shall haste to bid him battle, ere he pass too far, and lose more labour than the gain will quite. Then shalt thou see this Scythian Tamburlaine make but a jest to win the Persian crown. Techelles, take 1,000 horse with thee, and bid him turn back to war with us, that only made him king to make us sport. We will not steal upon him cowardly, but give him warning, and more warriors. Haste thee, Techelles. We will follow thee.
All right.
What says Theridamas?
Go on, for me.
Exeunt, everyone. So, we've got 2 scenes left in this act, which we'll rattle into in a moment. But yes, it's the sense that all the way through the previous scene, presumably, Tamburlaine's been going, yeah, you're going to be king, mate. Yeah.
This is one hell of a big chess game at the moment. One hell of a chess game.
Mm.
And we are his mere pawns.
Yes.
I do still like in the little two-hander between Tamburlaine and Mycetes, that lovely little. So this is your crown. I've taken it. No, I gave it to you. Oh, it's mine. No, I'm letting you keep it.
Yeah.
It's that lovely sort of playground. Mycetes just trying to keep himself in his station, but knowing that this man can come and take whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's a demonstration of actually the illusion of power. Mm-hmm. Is that the moment you take Mycetes out of his court, he is nothing. Mm-hmm. He is just and you know that whole back and forth is just beautifully cruel. Actually, I have to say, it is a very clear demonstration of that, of how ruthless might can be, and the way that sets up to what follows, with everyone being full again, Cosroe full of his pomp and his illusion of power. But without the forces to back it up, because he's basically outsourced it.
Yeah. Peak too soon.
Yeah. Right. Let us rattle through the last 2 scenes, because they're relatively short and sweet, and then we'll go into final comments and wrap up. So scene 6. Cosroe, Meander, Ortygius, and Menaphon with soldiers. You realise that everything's gone a little bit wrong.
What means this devilish shepherd to aspire with such a giantly presumption, to cast up hills against the face of heaven, and dare the force of angry Jupiter? But as he thrust them from underneath the hills and pressed out fire from their burning jaws, so will I send this monstrous slave to hell, where flames shall ever feed upon his soul.
Some powers divine or else infernal mixed their angry seeds at his conception, for he was never sprung of human race, since with the spirit of his fearful pride he dares so doubtlessly resolve of rule, and by profession be ambitious.
Yes. Unfortunately, we've got a doubling issue here. But as the thought continues the same, so Meander and Ortygius, read by the same person, carry on.
What god or fiend or spirit of the earth, or monster turned to a manly shape, or of what mould or metal he be made, what star or fate soever govern him, let us put on our meet encountering minds, and in detesting such a devilish thief, in love of honour and defence of right, be armed against the hate of such a foe, whether from earth or hell or heaven he grow.
Nobly resolved, my good Ortygius, and since we have all sucked one wholesome air, and with the same proportion of elements resolve, I hope we are resembled, vowing our loves to equal death and life. Let's cheer our soldiers to encounter him, that grievous image of ingratitude, that fiery thirster after sovereignty, and burn him in the fury of that flame that none can quench but blood and empery. Resolve, my lords and loving soldiers, now to save your king and country from decay. Then strike up, drum, and all the stars that make the loathsome circle of my dated life, direct my weapon to his barbarous heart, that thus opposeth him against the gods, and scorns the powers that govern Persia.
Exeunt drums sounding, sounds of battle within. Then enter Cosroe wounded, Tamburlaine, Theridamas, Techelles and Cosroe with others.
Oh, barbarous and bloody Tamburlaine, thus to deprive me of my crown and life. Treacherous and false Theridamas, even at the morning of my happy state, scarce been seated in my royal throne, to work my downfall and untimely end. An uncouth pain torments my grieved soul, and death arrests the organ of my voice. Who entering at the breach thy sword have made, sucks every vein and artery of my heart. Bloody and insatiate Tamburlaine.
The thirst of reign and sweetness of a crown that caused the eldest son of heavenly Ops to thrust his doting father from his chair and place himself in the imperial heaven moved me to manage arms against thy state. What better precedent than mighty Jove? Nature, that framed us of 4 elements, warring within our breasts for regiment, doth teach us all to have aspiring minds, our souls whose faculties can comprehend the wondrous architecture of the world and measure every wandering planet's course, still climbing after knowledge infinite and always moving as the restless spheres will us to wear ourselves and never rest until we reach the ripest root of all, that perfect bliss and soul felicity, the sweet fruition of an earthly crown.
And that made me to join with Tamburlaine, for he is gross and like the massy earth that moves not upwards, nor by princely deeds doth mean to soar above the highest sort.
And that made us the friends of Tamburlaine to lift our swords against the Persian king.
Or as, when Jove did thrust old Saturn down, Neptune and Dis gained each of them a crown. So do we hope to reign in Asia, if Tamburlaine be placed in Persia.
The strangest men that ever made nature made. I know not how to take their tyrannies. My bloodless body waxeth chill and cold, and with my blood my life slides through my wound. My soul begins to take her flight to hell, and summons all my senses to depart. The heat and moisture which did feed each other, for want of nourishment to feed them both, are dry and cold. And now doth ghastly death with greedy talons gripe my bleeding heart, and like a harpy tires on my life. Theridamas and Tamburlaine, I die, and fearful vengeance light upon you both.
And dies. Tamburlaine takes Cosroe's crown and puts it on his own head.
Not all the curses which the Furies breathe shall make me leave so rich a prize as this. Theridamas, Techelles, and the rest, who think you now is king of Persia?
Tamburlaine! Tamburlaine!
Though Mars himself, the angry god of arms, and all the earthly potentates conspire to dispossess me of this diadem, yet will I wear it in despite of them. As great commander of this eastern world, if you but say that Tamburlaine shall reign.
Long live Tamburlaine, and reign in Asia.
So now it is more surer on my head than if the gods had held a parliament, and all pronounce me King of Persia.
we've basically wiped clean the slate of all our peripheral characters. They're all dead or dispensed with. We have the core group as we now go into extra time discussion here. It is past 4, but I think again we're being lulled into we're being pulled into this world of rooting for Tamburlaine and his generals, because the people he's up against have so far mostly just been horrible, and so far we haven't seen him do anything within the soldiers' remit, anything particularly heinous. They seem honourable in their own way. I don't feel any particular sympathy for Mycetes. Sorry, Pamela.
That's quite all right, I don't either.
So, thoughts in the room as we're now 2/5 of the way through the play.
I was noticing that because I was thinking about how to stage this with few people. I was noticing that the stage directions called for lots of people to come onto the stage, but only 2, 3, 4 of them actually spoke.
Yeah.
And so that would be. I was thinking, yes, you could, if you wanted to follow those stage directions properly, you could maybe have a picture on a video screen of those people that weren't there, and that would allow for some doubling to take place. But I was just trying to work out how many what would be the smallest cast that you could feasibly do this with.
Well, it depends how many liberties you take. On Wednesday this week, we were going to be doing a radio version of this with 4 people.
Wow.
At Queen Mary's University. Obviously we couldn't, we had to cancel that a few weeks ago. So I knew that even if people dropped out, we could just about get through the play if we broke it down into chunks. Because I knew, people have a tendency to die, which means you don't, any peripheral characters you have in that cast list are cleared out of the way and the audience have a time to readjust. So tomorrow we're introduced to some more people who may or may not make it to the end of the play, and there is some tension there because there's some real questions about who's going to survive. It is what Game of Thrones in part is based on, is this kind of sex, death, murder, violence, political intrigue, drama has a lot of its roots here. And that question again for the audience of how complicit are you in enjoying slaughter and death and destruction, how come, because you see, I keep looking up and I keep looking at me as well, just going, we're really enjoying some of this. Aren't we terrible people?
Come on, we're actors, we love it.
Yes.
Doing up the scenery, fantastic.
That was a fantastic death, by the way.
Yeah,
it was.
Yes,
Yes, we didn't applaud. I apologise.
Yeah.
I was pushing forward. And also Tamburlaine's crown placing was very nicely done. There's that's where a little bit of propage and things does make a bit of a difference.
I suddenly thought, as I was putting it on my head, I didn't have my headphones on earlier when I was checking the next picture, so I was keeping very still.
Yeah. That's the thing, is it's not a point of pride when he puts it on his head. It's not like he knows he's got the power to hold this throne because he's killed everybody who could stand up against it. It's his right and it's his due from his point of view. We get Boreas mentioned a few times. The what's it, North Wind? It's one of the winds.
Yeah.
That's always pops up in plays quite a lot. Does old Boreas? It's always windy at that time. I'm only nominally keeping an eye on classical references. There's usually too many to be bothering with, and they don't usually matter.
One thing that cropped up to me was a couple of mentions of bullets.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that just jarred me because I'm here thinking of bullets as the modern understanding of guns, and yet Tamburlaine the Great would what would his bullets have been?
Well, I think within the logic of the play, they're bullets or shot of some description. The historical Tammet would probably not know because it was too early. But within the logic of the play, I think it is, unless I missed that. Seemed to be talking about.
There were two mentions of bullets.
Yeah.
And I think the second one was fiery bullets.
Yeah, fiery bullets, yeah.
But I mean, I think that's just, yeah, that's what the Tudors used to do.
That's true, actually.
So, I mean,
Didn't
they just
they
used
have-
to put contemporary references into their history
So
plays.
it's a bit of a mashup, but then again, historically, let's not pretend that that this is very accurate. That's fine.
That was just it was just a bit of a jarring point for me to hear that word in the context of a historical play.
Yeah. Any other jars or things you didn't like, or changes that you would like to instill, or thoughts of that regard in terms of pulling things together in the future? No, it's fine. It's all good. Have we run out of steam with this material?
I'm exhausted.
We would.
Right, you've been fighting very hard.
Yes.
Well, we've had politics. We've had two fight scenes or some degree fight scenes. I mean, we don't know precisely how much you would have seen with the alarums, but certainly something that wakes the audience up.
Yeah.
It does like to ebb and flow between sort of modes, if that's a way of putting it. But in a sense, we're still waiting to see where these central characters are going to go. We don't know what's going to happen with Zenocrate. We don't know what's going to happen with Tamburlaine himself. We don't know who his new enemies or problems. Where's this story going? Which we will find out tomorrow. Unless there are any additional thoughts at this stage, I will stop and we'll go into basic housekeeping stuff.
Oh, that's it.
No, that's it. Then thank you very much. If you've been watching, we'll be back tomorrow with more from Tamburlaine, hopefully getting through Acts 3 and 4 of Tamburlaine the Great. But we shall see what we shall see. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.